Welcome to The Explainer. All right, let's just dive right into this one, because we're looking at a case today that starts off as a totally baffling mystery and then slowly, piece by piece, unravels into something entirely different. Picture this. It's a freezing November morning back in 2020 in Farmington, New Mexico. It's 5:40 in the morning and a 911 call comes in from a highly distressed wife. That single call launches an investigation that is just packed with bizarre contradictions, hidden evidence, and a timeline that literally defies medical science. Let's dig into the source material and see exactly how this twisted story unfolded.
Think about this totally ominous text message sent by the victim, Robert, a full year before his death. I mean, wow. It instantly injects a massive dose of doubt into the scene that Farmington detectives are about to walk into. When someone predicts the exact, highly unusual circumstances of their own demise, you kind of have to look at everything that follows through a very critical lens.
Section 1. A chilling morning discovery.
So when police show up at 5:40 a.m. on November 29, 2020, they find 47-year-old Heather Hoher, she's a third-grade teacher, waiting outside, incredibly distraught. Inside, her 49-year-old husband, Robert, is dead in their bedroom. To the responding officers, it immediately looks like a horrible tragedy. But the timeline Heather gave them, it was instantly baffling. According to her, first at some unknown time, Robert supposedly stabs himself with a steak knife. But then, soon after inflicting these wounds, he apparently eats a slice of pie that Heather warmed up for him. By 11 p.m., he goes to bed, and she says she finally finds him unresponsive at 5 a.m. Even on the surface, this sequence of events sounds incredibly implausible. A guy fatally stabs himself and then casually has dessert? Come on.
As officers started actually examining the scene, they hit a massive, glaring anomaly. Where is the blood? You have a 6'3" man lying face down on the floor, dead from what clearly looked like puncture wounds to the chest, and yet officers noted that there was almost zero blood anywhere in the bedroom. Nothing on the floor, barely anything on the bed. For someone to die from stab wounds, there should be a significant amount of blood loss at the scene, right? But this bedroom was shockingly clean.
Section 2. The shifting timeline.
Because literally nothing was adding up at the house, detectives brought Heather and her adult family members down to the police station for questioning. And it's here that a pretty fabricated-sounding timeline quickly starts to fall apart. Initially, Heather claimed she discovered his superficial-looking wounds and cleaned them with a washcloth when he first went to bed, around 11 p.m. or midnight. But then, later in the interrogation, she suddenly shifts the narrative completely. Now she's claiming she actually went into the bedroom and cleaned his wounds at 3 a.m. That is a massive discrepancy about a really critical moment in time.
Meanwhile, down the hall, detectives are interviewing the other adults who lived in the home, Heather's 28-year-old son, Tyler, and his girlfriend, Elizabeth. And they painted this picture of absolute domestic bliss. Tyler explicitly told them, "They were always really cool. I never heard them fight." Both he and Elizabeth claimed the couple, who, mind you, had only been married for about 12 weeks, were in this happy honeymoon phase, always together, deeply in love, offering absolutely zero motive for violence.
But you know how it goes. The physical evidence and independent witnesses often tell a completely different story. While the family is spinning this picture-perfect honeymoon narrative, investigators found a neighbor who clearly reported hearing a loud, volatile argument, a male and female yelling, coming from the house between 3 o'clock and 4 a.m. Think about that for a second. That is the exact time frame Heather claims Robert was quietly dying in his room while she was just hanging out on the couch.
Section 3. The hidden evidence. So while all these interrogations are happening at the station, a team of crime scene investigators is meticulously searching the house. And what they uncover completely shatters Heather's already fragile alibi. The supposed suicide weapon? It wasn't in Robert's hands. It wasn't even in the bedroom. It was meticulously hidden underneath some clean mats all the way out in the kitchen.
Let's actually break down the forensic reality of this hidden knife, because it's a real game changer. First off, it was hidden in the kitchen. Second, when the state lab tested it, there was zero blood found on the blade. None. It had been washed clean. Third, only Robert's DNA was found on the handle. So I challenge you to consider the logic here. Why would a guy committing suicide get up, thoroughly wash the blade of the knife to remove all his own blood, and then meticulously stash that knife under kitchen mats before going back to the bedroom to die? It makes no sense.
And the hidden evidence wasn't just physical, it was digital too. Heather steadfastly claimed to detectives that they never got physical, backing up her son's whole testimony. Well, detectives pulled a secret recording directly from Heather's own cell phone. It was a video from November 23rd, just 6 days before Robert's death, and it showed a volatile, screaming argument between the two of them. Her claim that they never fought was entirely dismantled by her very own device.
Section 4. The Final Autopsy.
While witness statements can shift around and timelines can get blurry, medical science provides hard, undeniable facts. We need to revisit that massive anomaly we talked about earlier. How does a large man suffer multiple fatal stab wounds to the chest, yet leave almost no blood in the bedroom? How could that crime scene look so deceivingly clean? Well, the answer lies inside the body, and it paints a truly harrowing picture of Robert's final moments.
The autopsy showed absolutely catastrophic trauma. Robert suffered 2 stab wounds that went deep enough to puncture his right lung. A third stab wound punctured his left lung and incredibly sliced right through his heart's coronary artery. The reason there was no blood on the floor? Every bit of that bleeding was internal. 3 entire liters of blood had basically pooled inside his chest cavity.
The conclusion is incredibly simple. It's medically impossible. The pathologist noted that with injuries of this immense magnitude, we're talking double collapsed lungs and a severed artery here, death would have happened within minutes. Not hours, minutes. This scientifically proves that Heather's entire alibi of Robert stabbing himself, asking for some warmed-up pie, eating that pie, and then casually going to sleep for hours, it just completely defies human anatomy.
Now, after those initial interrogations and bagging all that evidence, you'd probably expect an immediate arrest, right? Instead, 5 grueling years passed, 5 whole years of waiting. As the source material points out, there was a massive state lab backlog in New Mexico, which meant the processing of DNA, forensics, and all that digital data moved at an agonizingly slow pace. It literally took half a decade before police finally had the complete, ironclad, scientifically sound package they needed to actually make their move.
Which brings us to the dramatic climax of the story. On April 1st, 2025, authorities finally acted on that mountain of contradictory evidence and medical impossibilities. Police pulled up to the elementary school where Heather worked and arrested her right outside. She was officially charged with second-degree murder and tampering with evidence. And that tampering charge? That's clearly pointing right toward that washed hidden knife and the suspiciously clean crime scene.
So, that leaves us here. Heather maintains her innocence, and of course, like anyone charged with a crime, she is presumed innocent until proven guilty in a court of law. But as she awaits her trial, you really have to ask yourself, when presented with a totally medically impossible timeline, mysteriously missing blood, a hidden, freshly washed weapon, and a completely fractured alibi, what in the world is a jury going to decide?